Interceptor as a scrambler. What gave me this idea? Well, I'm flipping through Instagram and I'm seeing all these cafe racers, and you know, I've got these visions of UJMs dancing in my head, right? So I'm looking at all these old motorcycles and thinking that I've got the mechanical skills to go make my own scrambler that has these classic style points on it. And then I realized I don't have the time or the tools or the ability to go tune 4 carburetors in a row. I don't even know how to tune 1 carburetor the right way. When I saw Cigar's video on his Interceptor as a scrambler, I got an idea, because I want to be out here. I want to be able to be out here riding. I also saw Fortnine's, video on the Continental GT, and I went out and test rode an Interceptor. I fell in love with the styling, with the sound, with the slipper clutch. Like, everything about this motorcycle spoke to me, and it was what I wanted to ride. And I didn't want to let go of that scrambler idea. For me, this came down to 3 mods. I knew I needed tires, I knew I needed a bash plate, and I knew I needed crash guards. So the tires are IRC GP110 Trail Winners. They're not amazing. They're good off-road. On the road, they whine a lot. And they balance like a drunk elephant. They're not the best tires. So if I had it to do over again, I'd probably go with Shinko 244, the Golden Boys, or Shinko 705s. Or if I really wanted to drop some coin, I'd go TKC 80s. 510 width in the rear and a 410 up front. The other thing about this bike with 1818, it's easy enough to find a rear tire, but it is difficult to find a front tire that's an off-road focused in an 18-inch. The bash plate. I went with the Red Rooster bash plate because it provides more coverage than the Royal Enfield plate. You don't have to drop the exhaust pipes, and it's thicker steel, so it's tougher. All those things made the Red Rooster an obvious choice to me. The next step was the crash bars, and these are minimal crash bars. You can get bigger crash bars, but I like these. I like the style of them. I wanted black, and I gotta say, I do love the black accents on the new 2023 Royal Enfield Interceptor and Continental GT. These are the 3 mods: the tires, the crash bars, and the bash plate. So what's it like to ride an Interceptor that's turned into a scrambler?
The Interceptor 650 on a gravel road, and I realize, by the way, that a lot of people are gonna say, well, in my country, this is just a road. Okay, good. For me, this is not a normal road. This requires more than stock tires. You could do it on stock tires, but I do not think it's ideal. It is pretty bumpy, but it is so much fun. It's a smoother ride on my Himalayan because of the 21-inch front wheel, the off-road design suspension. You know, this thing out here dancing around a little bit, that's perfectly okay with me. I don't have off-road ABS, so no switchable ABS. If you've already got one of these bikes and you want to take it off-road like this, you can. It's things like big bumps like right here. Yeah. And the camera flattens that out, but there's big giant holes in the road. And if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're not prepared for a dip like that, you know, you could get in serious trouble. You could have a problem like that. Oh, let's stand up on this thing. See, I'm leaned over the front in a big way, and it smooths out the ride a little bit. But if it were wet at all out here, my pegs would be slippery, and I'd be having a hard time maintaining traction with my feet. It's just not an ideal body position. While I do have my weight over the front, and that's good, after a while, you know, if you tried to ride like this for a day or half a day, your back's going to get pretty gnarly. Yeah, so let's talk about the tires a little bit. You've got a 18-18 tire situation. And off-road tires will typically give you a 17 or an 18 in the back, but then at least a 19 up front, if not a 21 up front. Ideally a 21-inch tire up front. It leaves you in a little bit of a pickle on this Interceptor because that front tire is not going to soak up the ground the way a 19 or a 21 would. It also makes it more difficult to find knobby tires to go on this bike. Oh, there's a turkey. The suspension. The rear suspension has preload, which helps. So if you wanted to soften it up for a ride like this, you could. It does take a tool to do that. And the front is not adjustable. And you could buy a kit to go in there, which if you were going to do serious off-roading on your Interceptor, I would probably, that and upgrade the rear suspension would probably be a key point for me. Oh, the gate's up. Let's see what we got though. Let's see if we can't do a sneaky. Yeah, I'm gonna go up here. Oh, yeah, so there you go. You can get aggressive. But wow, does it get scary after just a little bit of trouble. Let's turn this piece around. I don't have the whip around skills that a lot of people do with their bikes. And this is one area where this bike does not succeed, right? When it comes to off-road riding, you're not gonna have as easy of a time whipping a bike like this around because of the weight. All right, let's ride down this. Let's focus on what we're doing here. Big money, no whammies. Oh, she's sliding. Hey! But, you know, so the weight's against you. The suspension would need a tweak. The crash bars that I have on this bike are smaller. They're not adding maximum protection, but that was the style I was going for. You can get bigger crash bars for this. They cost a little more than the ones I have. You know, you don't have any riding modes, and that's not that big of a deal. It is nice to be able to break the rear end loose. You don't have switchable ABS, and that can be a problem in a spot like this when it gets pretty squirrely in deeper gravel. I have not ridden this in a ton of sand, so I can't speak to how it really performs in deep sand, but I can imagine it would be a situation. Let's just say it like that. Of course, your low seat height does get your feet on the ground a little easier, so that's good. So maybe that helps counter some of the weight issues, because this baby is, I think it's 540 pounds wet. The weight's not slung super low. It's slung a little bit low, but it's not slung super low. You know, the other thing that bugs me about riding a bike like this off-road is the shiny chrome. And I feel bad when this bike is dirty. I don't feel bad when my Himalayan is dirty, but I feel bad when this bike is dirty because it feels like it should be shiny. It shouldn't have, you know, little dings in it from all these rocks that sling up when you're riding hard like this. And see, all right, here's a great example. This rock right here, a rock like that on a bike like this, if you're hitting 40, 45 miles an hour, or even 30 miles an hour, and you don't, you know, you get target fixated and you can't avoid that thing, you're gonna be hurting, man. Like, you could be over the handlebars if you're not careful. And the other thing that I'll call out that is a major must-have if you're gonna set up your scrambler is the bash plate. So you do want to protect the undercarriage of the bike as much as you can, most specifically the oil filter, which is right up front. And stock, this bike does not come with a bash plate on it. The one from Royal Enfield requires you to drop the exhaust pipes. So that's not cool. And if this Royal Rooster, this Red Rooster that I have on this bike does not require you to drop the pipes. It's beefier steel. It adds more coverage, and it's basically the same price. I think it's a little bit more, but gates are not fun. It's supposed to be a wildlife management area, guys, not just your own personal drilling site. It's frustrating. I do not want to drop it. I'd love to be able to spin this thing around. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. See, here's a here's a situation we've got here. All right, we're gonna try to spin it. Ah! Oh. Nope. Just digging into the ground, but that might be enough. That might be enough. I'm out here by myself, you know. This ain't, oh, hey. Got a little bit of backup too. Look at that. Oh yeah. Oh, we're gonna make that. So nervous. Ah. Killed it. Ah, almost dropped it. Woo! Ah! So the bash plate will protect you from rocks that sling up on the trail, or if you go over things like big rocks and you happen to go over something on the trail, then you've got some protection so you won't crack your crankcase. Would I buy this bike specifically for this purpose? No. No, I would not. If this is what you intend on doing primarily, there are better machines that do this job. But if you want a 9010 city scrambler, man, and you know, you can see this thing will scream down the highway. A valid use case for this bike, it's just not the primary use case for this bike.
So obviously the bike has its limits. And I think if you're gonna do this as a primary off-road machine, that's not the best choice. But if you're doing this for style, if you're doing this to turn your Interceptor into a 9010 street machine that's got off-road capability, I think you can definitely do it. You can definitely go ride trails. You're not gonna keep up with a KTM 890 Adventure or something like that, right? Even a Honda CRF 300 Rally is gonna outrun you on a trail because it's just made for being out in the wilderness. And you know, yeah, I've taken this thing up some rough stuff, but it's not made for it. You could go deep on this. You could upgrade the front forks. You could upgrade the rear shocks. I've seen people change the tire sizes on this thing, put 17s on the back or a 19 on the front. Like, you could go further with this. You could put a lot of money into this. But once you do that, you're like a $6,000 bike plus dealer fees. And then you start adding on $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of parts, not to mention, are you doing all that work yourself? Or are you gonna pay somebody to do that? So once you get close up in that $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 range, you gotta start talking about the Triumph Scrambler 900, right? Brand new, and that bike is made that way from the factory. So you don't run into any of these issues about, you know, well, you've done aftermarket modifications and now the bike's not stock. So the Triumph comes that way. Yes, it's twice the price, but if you're gonna seriously add off-road capability to this machine, then it's about the same price. If you're gonna go with an Interceptor that's a Scrambler, it's really about a styling decision. And if you want a true off-road machine that's got those same Scrambler classic retro, neo-retro looks, I think the Triumph Scrambler 900 is a better choice. Monetarily, I think its functionality, I think everything about that bike will outperform this bike off-road. Okay, what about the Himalayan and the Scram? Great bikes. Royal Enfield made fantastic motorcycles when they made the Himalayan and the Scram. The Scram's got a 19-inch front wheel. The Himalayan's got a 21-inch front wheel. I have a Himalayan. I ride it off-road. It will outrun this bike off-road, no problem. Where those bikes fail is the 411 part of that motorcycle, right? So this is a 650, it's a twin. It's a completely different sound and riding experience, especially when you're on the road. And they'll run great. They're fantastic motorcycles, but this thing will outrun those on the road every time. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. So you can go get a Himalayan or a Scram for $5,000. you can go get one of these for $6,000. But if you're gonna put $5,000 or $4,000 or $3,000 even worth of parts into this motorcycle, I would say go ahead and start with a bike that's made for off-road, right? Start with that Triumph Scrambler 900 as a key comparison point. There are other bikes you could get. Make your decision wisely. And hey, worst case scenario, you can always go buy another motorcycle. Until then, ride safe.